what can I say about this man? He's a bastard, owes me a lot of money. Now, he's a pretty unique character, Charlie. You know, he is quite unique. I mean, think about Charlie. How unique is this? How many people do we know who've slept with Ewan McGregor? That's pretty unique, isn't it? Lots of men go, no, I'd love to. How many people do we know who've influenced or helped influence a whole industry? When Charlie and Ewan did The Long Way Round, when it was in its peak, motorcycle sales in the adventure sector increased by as much as 60%. And ladies and gentlemen, that's not BMW, that's the sector. And if you look around you now at the show today, every brand has got its adventure motorcycle. Every brand is out there in that sector. And that sector is still the fastest growing sector in the industry, adventure motorcycling. And that's a hell of a thing to say that you and your mate and your TV show influenced the whole industry. And finally, in that uniqueness, how many people do we know who've held Angelina Jolie naked in their arms? And that bit really pisses me off, to be quite honest. So please, ladies and gentlemen, give it absolutely loads in this noisy atmosphere for the wonderful, the lovely Mr. Charley Boorman.
Hey!
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Bloody hell. Well, happy Valentine's Day to all you beautiful ladies out there. Hello, happy Valentine's Day. Are you all going out tonight and getting laid later? Woohoo! 3 times a year for me, Valentine's, birthdays and Christmases.
We're supposed to be talking about motorbikes, Charlie. Motorbikes.
Okay.
So Charlie, I'll do a bit of proper catch-up, but what a lot of people don't know, some of you may be, some of the people who follow the whole Charley Boorman thing, do you want to come into the light a bit?
Sure. No idea what's going on. It is fantastic to be at a motorcycle show, isn't it? I've just been walking down all through these places and just thinking, oh my God. And you just want a bit of everything, don't you?
Yeah.
Anyway, my stand's over there if you want a nice adventure on a motorcycle through Africa.
We can do the plug later, okay? But what I want to do is, a lot of people don't know that Charlie had a bit of a weird upbringing. On the one hand, he was getting half brought up in Ireland, in Southern Ireland, and at the same time, he had this like Hollywood kind of upbringing, because your father was a very famous film director. I mean, who was your dad?
Yeah, I don't know how many of you know, but my father's a guy called John Boorman, who directed films like Deliverance and Excalibur and Hope and Glory and Point Blank and Emerald Forest, all sorts of really big Hollywood movies. And as a kid, we kind of traveled around the world with him. You know, I have 3 sisters, and we used to go to all the different film sets, and he used to just chuck us into his movies because we were cheap cannon fodder, and he's quite cheap. So we just, you know, that's what we did as we grew up.
What was your first film, Charlie?
I don't know. The first one I was ever in with my dad was a film called Deliverance. I wasn't the banjo player. I wasn't the guy in the woods either, squealing. But my father said to me, "Look, Charlie, if I give you this tricycle, will you sit on that sofa with that bloke?" It sounded a bit dodgy, but that guy turned out to be John Voight, and so that's kind of what I did as I grew up.
Okay, this year, we mentioned it earlier on before you came when I was chatting, it's like a special year, 10th anniversary of The Long Way Round.
Yes, yeah, 10 years. I think it was quite funny with this month in February with when we met BMW for the first time. We actually went down to the Simon Pavey Off-Road School and first had to go on the 1100 GS, which is just with the 1150, which is just there. So yeah, no, it's quite an emotional year.
Well, on that point then, what's it like seeing that again? That's the Long Way Round bike, Charlie's bike from The Long Way Round, and the Long Way Down bike. So they're the 2 original bikes, by the way, folks. So what's it like being close to them again? Does it bring back all the memories, good ones, bad ones?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I think, you know, it was quite funny when we were trying to get Long Way Round off the ground, and you know, when we first started, when you and I came up with this idea, and we were going to go away for 4.5 months, and all this kind of stuff, and I slowly started to realise that I just didn't have the money to be able to go, and Ewan had just done Star Wars, so he was minted, and I thought being Scottish, I probably wouldn't get any of that money, so I had to come up with another plan, but you know I forgot what I was talking about.
So you had the plan, you had the idea of making a small trip into a big trip.
I do remember a small trip into a big, and I do remember going off, and we couldn't get a TV deal here. And so we went off to America. Ewan was doing some work in America. We met a couple of TV stations in America. And I remember one of the TV stations, we told them the idea. And one of them had said to us, oh, yeah, you know, we get the idea, but who gets voted off? And I thought, well, it's not going to be fucking Ewan, is it? So I was going, I don't like them, do you? And he was going, yeah, I don't know, I think they're really good. And I go, no, I don't think so. So we had all sorts of kind of things. And I think, you know, and then Ewan and I were in Australia as well, and we met Channel 10, and we pitched it to this guy in Channel 10 in Australia, in Sydney. And he sat there and he goes, do you really want to know what I think? And I said, yeah, no, we'd love to know. And he goes, I think 2 wankers on motorcycles. So that was that guy. But, you know, thinking of all those things and then looking at this bike and how far both Ewan and I have come, and especially for me, it really changed my whole life. So, and, you know, BMW have been wonderful to me over the years as well, and supported us in all the TV shows when we did the Dakar Rally. I've got my Dakar bike over there and I'll stand over there. And, yeah, so, you know, memory lane.
So all 3 bikes are here, the Dakar, long way round, long way down.
And I crashed all of them. Not as much as Ewan crashed, obviously, but I was always quite lucky that whenever we did the TV, I'm sure Ewan thought there was a conspiracy going on, because especially for Long Way Down, Ewan fell off a lot more than I did. Well, technically he did, but it's just every time I fell off, the camera didn't happen to be running. And poor Ewan, every time he did it, there was always a camera running. So, yeah, anyway.
Well, we're going to talk about the off-road school shortly, but just going back to the long way again. I mean, you're up and running, you've got a TV deal eventually, and an ordinary little trip ended up being this big TV show. And if I remember rightly, one of the key elements to doing the show the way you wanted was having a special kind of a cameraman. I mean, tell us, what was the idea behind that extra team member?
Yeah, I don't know how many people of you remember a guy called Claudio von Planta. How many here have seen Long Way Round and Long Way Down?
Wow.
Oh, thank God for that. Because one was sitting there probably thinking, what the fuck is that guy talking about? Anyway, Claudio von Planta, you know, one of the key things to make the TV work was that it was going to be Ewan, Claudio, and myself, and we were going to go off and spend most of our time together. We'd have Russ and Dave in the backup vehicles with extra cameras, filming all the other bits and pieces while we went off and had our adventure, and we'd team up with them every so often. So it was really important about the cameraman, and we really struggled to find a cameraman. We eventually found this cameraman, a guy called Claudio von Planta. His name is actually Count Claudio von Planta.
What, a real Count?
No, a proper Count. We used to call him something else quite a lot. But anyway, so he gets on board. He goes, yes, I can drive a motorbike, no problem. And he'd come from a cameraman, war correspondent cameraman, and he'd been in Afghanistan during the Russian invasion. He'd gone up with the Afghans. He'd interviewed Bin Laden and come back and told everyone he was a nutter when no one was listening. And so he had this. And one time he was arrested and he put into a prison with this Russian pilot during the Afghan invasion. And this Russian guy said, we have to escape out of this prison tonight. We've got to go. So they managed to sneak out. And as they were going over the hill, another fighter jet came along and blew the compound up. And so, you know, he would be right in there. And there's Ewan and I going, yeah, well, we're going to be camping every night. And he's going, yes, I'm sure it's very difficult. Anyway, a week before we go, he announces, he comes up to me, he says, Charlie, just so you know, I've been looking at my license and the bike license bit has disappeared. So what do you mean disappeared? He goes, well, I didn't really have one. So he lied to us. And
2 weeks to go.
2 weeks to go. And then he failed his test 3 times. And so he's a shit rider. And then after Long Way Round and Long Way Down, he's still is a shit rider and has never really changed.
He fell off a lot.
Oh, he fell off constantly. He fell off. I remember one time we were going along some road, dirt road somewhere. I can't remember. We had these walkie-talkies so we could talk to each other in our helmets, and we're going along, and then eventually this voice comes up and he goes, "Hello, it's Claudio." And we go, "Yes, we know it's you, Claudio." And he goes, "Yes, I think I've fallen off." And I said, "Well, you have or you haven't? Which one is it, Claudio?" There was a long pause, and he goes, "Yes, definitely." So we came back, and there was this bike splattered all over the floor, and bits of bike everywhere. And he was walking off up the hill to take a shot. And he goes, "Yes, you'll fix that." And I went, "Yes, Count." But and there was another time when he fell. We were in Russia, baking hot day. The tarmac was melting on the road. You know when it comes like that. And I see this petrol station, so I slow down just for this petrol station, and I hear this crash behind me. I'm first, you in second, Claudio's third. And I hear this massive crash, and I look round, and there's Claudio rolling on the floor beside me. And I look down, and I said, "What the fuck are you doing there, Claudio?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know. I was sleeping." He'd fallen asleep. And that's about as good as he got.
Well, after saying that, I think you've said it so many times that the long way round, particularly, was so successul partly because of Claudio. The way he filmed was always at the, on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were looking for that something special from somebody, and Claudio kind of stepped up to that mark, and we used something like 89% of the stuff that he filmed we used, which was quite extraordinary, really, and so and I'm very grateful to him because he gave us that kind of feeling that we were looking for. Not that we really knew what the fuck we were looking for, but we didn't even know what we were going to do, really.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think that Australian TV guy was right, especially in moments when everything goes wrong, and all these. How many of you have gone on an adventure? Be 3 days, 2 days, 10 days. It's fantastic. I think the longer you start to ride motorbikes, the more you want to go and you want to do a trip, and and if it's just riding to Paris or to Italy or to wherever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's an adventure, and it's that feeling of when you're out there and you always worry about breaking down, or you worry about things that might go wrong, but really at the end of the day, the things you remember are the things that went wrong, when you broke down or something happened and someone came along and fixed it or helped you fix it. There's a lovely book by Ted Simons called Jupiter's Travels, and if you haven't read any adventure books, apart from my books, obviously, you would read first and then Ted's. But if you want to really get inspired, which you and I were inspired by, you would read Ted Simon's book, and he, the first chapter is all about that. Is that the breakdowns are the adventure. And sometimes it's getting there that is the adventure rather than where you're going to.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was Ted's anniversary, I think, last year. The book's anniversary, wasn't it? And
no, it's a good one. And there's Nick Saunders just over there as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Who's another inspiring guy. He decided to go around the world on an R1. By himself, and just did the whole lot himself. He's an amazing guy.
No, he is. And loads of other people, you often say this, that, it's the long way round was, you were sort of, I think you're wrong in this a little bit. You said that you were sort of lucky that the long way round took off.
I still believe that. I still believe that, it was a good idea. But all these things, it's all about timing, and you never know what is going to be successful or not. And you and I went out with great expectations and looking for adventure, and just hope somebody would buy it. Because we'd spent all the fucking money and needed it back.
But you always pick up the other adventures like Mondo Enduro. And Lowest Price.
Lowest Price, and then there's
Sam Manicon over the way.
I mean, there's loads of people. I mean, obviously our tours are much better than all of theirs, obviously. But if you actually want to learn something, you better come with us.